Every woman who has survived emotional chaos knows the one moment where you're sitting across from a man you actually like, whose presence feels good in your body, and your nervous system whispers, "Don't you dare fall asleep at the wheel again." You feel that pull, your softness rising, that hope humming underneath your skin, and at the exact same time, you feel your old patterns stretching like fingers, like they want to drag you backward from the very version of yourself that you outgrew. That moment is why this episode exists. Because there comes a point in your healing journey where softness terrifies you much more than loneliness, where letting someone in feels riskier than being alone, where your desire and your discernment start wrestling at the same time, and you are terrified you'll choose the wrong door again. It's a moment only women who have survived emotional warfare understand. You crave connection, but you refuse to be stupid about it. You want softness, but you're done confusing softness with self-abandonment. You want romance, but you're unwilling to hand over your intuition like a sacrificial offering again. And in that moment where you're starting to open, but you're terrified of betraying yourself, that is exactly where the dark feminine is born. I'm Megan Webster, an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and the woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. This is the Narcissist's Worst Nightmare podcast. This episode is for the woman who has rebuilt herself after abuse. She is not crawling out of the fire anymore. She's standing in the ashes, ready to build something real. She's looking for connection, standards, and intentionality, but she's also smart enough to know that desire without discernment is how women end up right back in trauma cycles where they swore they would never be again. This is for you who wants to be soft but refuses to be stupid ever again. You know you have a good heart and an even sharper pattern recognition system now. For the woman who wants love but will not negotiate with red flags, who feels attraction but also feels the echoes of old wounds poking at her chest. And sacred standards of dating will be threaded throughout this entire episode, because if you are starting to date from power instead of wounds, this 30-day dating reset is going to change the entire trajectory of your dating life for the next year. You're not afraid of men, you are afraid of your former self. The version of you who tolerated too much, who excused things when she should have walked away, who saw red flags and painted them beige because she wanted to believe in potential. The version of you who tried to love someone into emotional maturity, who avoided her intuition because she wanted the story to work. It's not the man that scares you, it's the memory of your own self-abandonment. You're terrified of ignoring your intuition again, that you'll override your own boundaries because chemistry feels intoxicating. You're scared your old coping styles will rise up as ghosts, people-pleasing, emotional caretaking, minimizing your needs, rationalizing behavior that doesn't align. This fear is not dysfunction, it's data. It means your system remembers what almost destroyed you, and your body is trying to protect you from making a mistake it refuses to repeat. Healing does not erase the past, but it does make you confront the parts that you abandon yourself in it. Here's the part that most women miss. Fear is not a red flag, it is a checkpoint. It is your inner black cat stepping forward and saying, slow down, pay attention, choose intentionally. Softness is not danger, unconscious softness is. And this is where your evolution starts to begin. Not by suppressing your softness, but by pairing it with self-loyalty so strong it becomes untouchable. Women who have done their healing assume that if a connection feels good, it must be safe. But attraction isn't proof of alignment. Attraction is a nervous system response. It's something familiar, pattern recognition, chemistry, fantasy, projection, longing. Sometimes it's unresolved trauma bonds trying to masquerade as intuition. The dark feminine doesn't demonize attraction. She studies it. She lets her desires speak, not lead. She lets her feelings exist, but not dictate. This is where the black cat dating standards become a superpower for you, because in early dating, women often confuse intensity with compatibility. But intensity is just dopamine dressed up as destiny. Compatibility reveals itself quietly. Consistency reveals itself slowly. Character reveals itself when the glitter wears off. Potential reveals nothing. Patterns reveal everything. The woman you are now doesn't bend herself into shapes that make her feel chosen. She watches. She listens. She doesn't rush to fill the silence or prove she's good enough. And she does not fear losing him because she knows only the wrong man can exit. He cannot ruin. When a woman steps into this level of discernment, dating becomes grounded, not frantic. She stops auditioning, shape-shifting, writing emotional resumes to prove she's worth choosing. When you step into your sovereignty, it is soft, open, receptive, but aware. She doesn't walk into a connection looking for a home. She walks in asking whether this man has the emotional architecture to handle her presence. This is why I built the Sacred Standards Challenge. It's for the woman who wants to date from alignment, discernment, emotional stability, and self-devotion. For the woman who refuses to let attraction override her standards ever again. Most women confuse softness with danger because softness was the state they were in when they got hurt. They associate openness with being blindsided, vulnerability with being manipulated, and giving with being taken advantage of. The softness did not harm you. Self-abandonment did. Your vulnerability was not a problem. Your lack of standards was. Your giving was not the issue. Your lack of discernment was. The dark feminine doesn't stop being soft. She becomes soft with herself first. She gives from overflow, not from survival, and she receives from discernment, not desperation. She chooses with her intuition and not abandonment wounds. Softness is only dangerous when it's given to someone who is not safe. And the woman you are now, the woman you are becoming, would never hand softness to a man who's not earned it. That is the black cat shift. Soft heart, steel boundaries. Because you are not meant to be hyper independent forever. One of the biggest things that people will cling to is a belief that they're better alone. It doesn't come from a genuine preference, even though solitude does feel exquisite after years of drowning in chaos. But the independence actually becomes a survival tactic that slowly hardens into your identity. You didn't step into hyper independence because it empowered you. You stepped into it because nobody else around you was emotionally capable of meeting you where you stood. You learned to regulate alone, soothe alone, anticipate alone, and carry the entire emotional weight of a relationship on your own back. Strength was not a choice. It was a reaction to abandonment, inconsistency, and immaturity that you compensated for. But now your life where danger is no longer breathing down your neck and your nervous system has still not caught up to the truth. Your body still grips everything with white knuckles, like you have to perform emotional self-sufficiency just to prove that you're healed. You still believe that carrying everything alone is safer than letting someone support you. You anticipate every outcome 5 steps ahead because you lived too long for people who made you responsible for the emotional safety of the relationship. Softness is not weakness. It's the evolution of strength. The moment you stop operating from survival and start letting yourself be held in the smallest ways. The black cat woman doesn't actually mean you don't let anybody in. It means letting people in slowly, intentionally, with discernment, steady edges, and the quiet confidence that your heart is sacred and deserves reverence. Hyper-independence is fear wearing a crown, but interdependence, the ability to stand strong while allowing someone to stand behind you, is sovereignty wearing silk. When you've mastered the art of choosing yourself, you finally have the capacity to choose someone else without abandoning yourself in the process. One of the most important principles inside of the Sacred Standard Challenge is this. Your nervous system is the first one to know when something is off. It is long before your mind can form a clean sentence about what's wrong. Your body is already speaking to you. Your chest tightens before a red flag becomes conscious. Your breath shifts before your brain creates a storyline. Your energy pulls back the moment a pattern matches something you've lived through. Intuition is not dramatic. It is your body processing micro signals faster than your conscious mind can articulate them. It is your emotional intelligence and living experience whispering, pay attention. And the reason why so many women miss these signals is because the people who hurt them were experts at teaching them to doubt themselves. They trained you to override your instincts, soften your boundaries, entertain confusion, and explain away behaviors that made your body recoil. They needed you disconnected from your intuition so you would stay connected to them. Doubting your own perceptions was part of your conditioning, not your identity. Now that you're healing, your body is becoming louder than your fear. That stomach drop when a man makes an offhand comment that reminds you of someone you've survived is not an overreaction, it's recognition. The tightness in your chest when someone's inconsistency mirrors an old pattern isn't paranoia, it is memory. The shift in your breathing when someone's energy feels familiar in the wrong way is not being dramatic. It's your nervous system recalling danger before your conscious mind catches up. Your body's not trying to scare you, it's trying to guide you. The dark feminine does not silence her body, she studies it. She pays attention to these microsignals. She connects the pattern to the instinct. and she responds instead of explaining it away. You are no longer someone that needs to see red flags in bright neon. Your body whispers and you answer with absolute clarity. Women are taught to treat their standards like a liability, like expressing what they want makes them demanding, complicated, or hard to love. But standards are not a threat for a healing, emotionally available man. They are a spotlight. They make you stand in the truth of what you need, and every man around you reveals exactly who he is. A man with emotional maturity won't flinch when you articulate your expectations. He will feel relieved because he sees a woman who knows what she wants. A man who cannot lead himself will try to convince you that you're asking for too much because he knows you can't give it. A man who's lived his whole life avoiding accountability will label you difficult because he's never been asked to rise before. The man aligned to you will step closer, not retreat. And the man who disappears wasn't lost, he was filtered. I want to take you back about a year ago when I first opened myself up to dating again. I had opened some profiles on dating apps and I'd be messaging with a couple of people. This particular human I'd be messaging for about a month. He was hyper fixated on meeting. We hadn't even had a phone call. He never even offered, but he was talking about things like vacations together and things that for me felt very out of place in context with the nature of our relationship. Not a relationship, talking stage, whatever. His messages were also more on the sexual side, which I'm okay with, but it lacked depth. There was not a lot of getting to know me, the human, and he would also disappear for days at a time and show up with a selfie. For me, it was super clear what he was after, and it didn't match my dating intentions. We had talked about that several times over that month, so I finally said something that cut the conversation off completely. I'm actually going to read you the text that ended the connection, and you're like, Megan, why do you have that? It made good content for the group chat. My message to him said, hey, inconsistency is not attractive to me. I have been very clear on what I want, and I like a man who can keep his word. My standards won't be changing for anyone, and I don't want communication to feel hard ever, especially in the beginning. That was it. Old me would have shapeshifted. I would have softened my needs. I would have lowered my voice. I would have convinced myself that I was asking too much. But the woman that I had become, the woman you are probably becoming right now, I refused to abandon myself for chemistry. I knew that if I lowered my standards here, I was right back in my own history. So I didn't lower them, I raised them, I sent that text, and it was done. In that moment, I felt more aligned to a higher standard, and I started filtering men a little bit differently, and the ones that were capable of showing up did start appearing in my world, not because it became easier to love, but because I stopped negotiating with men who were never meant to hold me in the first place. This was actually about the same time frame that I met my now boyfriend. When you embody a black cat energy, you stop fearing the loss of men and start fearing the loss of yourself. You finally understand that the man who walks away because of a standard wasn't stable enough to stay. You stop performing mental gymnastics to be chosen because you realize you've never been afraid if they'd leave, been afraid if you wouldn't walk away. That's why embodied standards matter. It's not about rules or what you deserve on paper. It's about how you allow yourself to be treated when your heart is fully open. It's the baseline to build a relationship off of, and that part of you that refuses to negotiate is your dignity. Standards are not about impressing men, controlling men, or manipulating outcomes. They're about knowing who you are, what emotional reality you will and will not participate in, and how you anchor yourself so deeply in your worth that mediocrity is no longer tempting. This is where dating becomes easy, light, grounded, not because men change, but because your tolerance did. I wish more women knew that they deserve to be loved in the same language that they give. Every woman listening to this has a moment in her history where she believed she was too much, too emotional, too intuitive, too deep, too affectionate, too devoted, too sensitive. But what you called too much was never excess. It was misplacement. You were offering qualities that deserved reverence to men that didn't have the capacity to receive them. The tenderness you give is not a flaw, it's a gift. The way you feel deeply isn't intensity, it's intelligence. The softest is not you being naive, it's spiritual strength that was mishandled by men who didn't understand it. You deserve to be loved by someone who fluently speaks the emotional language that you've always given. There are men who know how to communicate without defensiveness, who show consistency without being asked, who initiate emotional conversations instead of avoiding them, who don't confuse emotional availability with weakness. There are men who can see your depth and do not feel intimidated. They feel honored. But you will not meet these men if you're negotiating with your worth with the ones who treat your heart like an optional add-on. Your truth is simple. You have never been too much. You've been underappreciated, misunderstood, pouring oceans into men who were shaped to hold teaspoons. And every time you told yourself that you need to shrink or silence your heart to fit someone's emotional capacity, you weren't protecting the relationship. You were abandoning yourself. Your softness isn't something you need to suppress. It's something that needs to be protected until someone can prove to hold it. There is a version of you who doesn't date from fear, anxiety, or the trauma blueprint that told you connection required overfunctioning. When you stop dating from fear, you stop handing men the power to validate you. Your nervous system is no longer scanning for danger, it's looking for alignment. You're no longer auditioning, you are simply observing. You're not hoping they choose you, you're deciding if they are qualified. This version of you does not chase attention, she commands it effortlessly because she is rooted. She evaluates energy instead of being lost in a fantasy. She no longer falls for potential because she understands potential has no value without behavior. Chemistry is not enough. Consistency becomes the currency, and she is not thrown off center when she likes someone. She becomes even more anchored. You do not need to prove anything. You are not competing with anyone other than yourself, and you certainly do not shrink your power to soothe a man's insecurities. You will know your value so deeply that dating stops being an emotional battlefield and starts becoming an evaluation process guided by intuition, regulation, and relational intelligence. The moment that you meet a man who knows what to do with your heart, your softness won't feel like danger anymore. He won't require you to shrink your intuition, silence your boundaries to perform emotional acrobatics. You won't find yourself overthinking every message or decoding every tone, and your body certainly will not brace for impact before every conversation. You no longer have to walk 3 steps ahead emotionally just to feel safe. I had a client who spent years dating men she had to drag emotionally, the ones that said, I really liked you, but act like passengers in their own life. We'd worked together for about 3 months when someone new entered her life, and she said it felt like someone showed up at the right frequency, a true match for her. But he didn't just match her energy, he met her in it. She'd tease him, he'd tease her back. She'd express desire, he wouldn't shrink. She'd go soft, and he would meet her there. Something she shared with me on a call has always stuck with me because I've also had this experience. She said, she no longer felt like the only adult in the relationship, that she was finally being met. No trauma bonding, no adrenaline rush, no chaos, just compatibility and chemistry that didn't require her to abandon herself. When someone is truly aligned, your nervous system recognizes it before your mind does. You sleep better, you laugh easier, you stop waiting for the shoe to drop, and you stop preparing your escape route in your head. Being soft with the right man doesn't feel like you're losing control. It feels like you're remembering who you were before you learned to overprotect, like you're getting your innocence back, your trust back, your feminine energy back. And then when you understand the purpose of the black cat archetype, discernment isn't meant to keep you guarded forever. It's meant to guide you to the moment where it becomes safe to melt. Softness is not vulnerability. It's your reward for choosing well. You are allowed to be soft and powerful in the same breath. Give yourself permission to want connection without sacrificing yourself. You have the ability to protect your heart with discernment and still love with depth. You can walk into dating with your standards high, your intuition sharp, and your self-worth unwavering. You are not here to prove your value to anyone. You're here to embody it, wildly, unapologetically, without negotiation. If this episode cracks something open in you good, that means that you are deciding to refuse to abandon yourself ever again for love or anything else, and choose men only who are available to rise to meet you. For the woman listening to this who is stepping back into dating after trauma, you do not need to be harder, colder. You don't need to build a personality barbed wire just to feel safe. You need standards, sacred ones, the ones that rise with you instead of collapsing the moment someone shows you attention. That's exactly what the Sacred Standards Challenge is. It is a 30-day dating reset. We start on December 15th. This is for women who are done dating from wounds and ready to date from their power. By Christmas, you will feel steady in your body again. By January, you will have a dating profile, a presence, and a pace that matches the woman you become instead of the woman you had to be to survive. In this program, you learn how to choose men instead of waiting to be chosen. You learn how to trust your instincts instead of your fantasies. You learn how to stay soft without feeling stupid. I will walk you through the exact emotional and energetic frameworks I have used to rebuild my own dating life from the ground up. You will leave the month knowing exactly who gets access to you and who doesn't. You have 2 coaching calls. You get a dating profile audit for me, my first connection messaging scripts to filter on first contact, the red flag detector that will save you months of pain, and you get an entirely new standard operating system for how you move in dating. I know you are ready to walk into 2026 and leave the 2025 patterns behind. Join Sacred Standards. This is where everything begins to shift for you. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast. And remember, soft doesn't have to feel stupid when you decide to heal and rise.